we people who are the movers and shakers of society? Are we the professionals, and should we remain so? It's quite an active debate within Rotary International at the moment. France and Germany very much concerned to keep the upper crust in Rotary and everybody else out, and I had a very lengthy conversation with the lady at Berlin in Romania on precisely that topic, saying that the manager director doesn't want to sit down with any of his employees. Quite a serious matter, or do we say it's open to anybody who is of goodwill, who wishes to do service? We've got young people coming along who have different ideas about status, different ideas about dress, who may find that what we do here is not quite to their liking. They're missing out, but there we are, that's not to their liking. And I think that's something that we as Rotarians have got to be clear about as we market what we do. And I think it's an issue for Mr. Morrow in 1914. It's an issue for Rotary in this century. So it's something perhaps to think about. We've got satellite clubs, we've got interact clubs, we've got Rota Kids, we've got new and initiatives, can't say the word, but you know what I mean, initiatives and clubs. My teeth stick with that one. So we've got really good potential for different shapes and different clubs and different things. And it may well be that the answer is, with our 18,000 clubs, that we rejoice in the difference that clubs make. Some clubs will have one tradition and some clubs the others. But we do, as Rotarians in these islands, need to have some idea as to how we present ourselves. The heart of Rotary is the family of Rotary, I believe. And our clubs give us that security and protection to venture out, to do new things and to explore change. Because one thing Stanley was a person who embraced change and made changes. So there we are. Now, so far as this club is concerned, as Clive reminds me, it was formed in 1911. It was chartered in 1912. It was the first club to be chartered outside America, and it's club number 50. And it had 306 members in 1919. So there's a challenge, Clive, to get a few more members to get back up to 1919 standards. But an interesting thing about Stanley was the people who joined the London Club in 1914 were given a little book that was a little pocket book. And on one side of the page you wrote down on a monthly basis what service you had provided to your fellow members, and on the other side what service they had provided to you. As he was an undertaker, you can imagine that half the page was blank. So that's why he didn't get membership, being an undertaker, until he described himself as a monumental mason. Whether that's large in stature or monumental in other ways, I don't know, and that seemed to do the trick. Rather hard-nosed to think that you account to your fellow members for what you give them and what they give you. Perhaps not quite the way that we think about it in this century. We would be very wary of people who join Rotary simply to feather their own nest. We wouldn't have them. But networking was very much the lifeblood of Rotary then, and to some extent the edge has fallen off being a networking organisation now. We have our skills and our abilities, we have our classifications, we have our expertise, we have our civic and our corporate connections, and we as Rotarians really do need to make use of those. It's very easy to make things happen. Now, and I visited an adventure centre in Swansea, and the centre wanted a new kitchen. It would have cost on the open market something like nearly 200,000 to do it. Rotarians with their connections with construction, with architecture, etc., made it happen for less than 40,000.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good practical example of networking. But more particularly, there are so many organisations that are doing good works in our community that they challenge us not to be a bubble. We've tended too long to think that we are a bubble. We do the good works in society and we are the preeminent organisation for that. We are one of the preeminent organisations, but there are others around. Particularly at the moment, business in the community. Some 800 firms have indicated in the latest report in September, go on the website and you'll see it, wanting to use their staff as volunteers for community purposes. They have the staff, they have the money, they're looking for projects. If we are not careful, we will miss out and they will find those projects from other organisations. And believe me, there are other organisations who have them. So I think back to networking, we have got to be a little bit more on the qui-vive than we have been in the past. A bit more hard-nosed. There's a distinction, I believe, between working for and working with. We need to have the partnerships with people and say to them, a bit like the little book, we're doing things for you, what's on the left-hand page for us? Too often we do things for people and we don't get any recognition for it. It's nice to do it, but sometimes we've got to say, okay, we will do that, but what will you do for us? So I thought the little book was actually quite a helpful example in the matter. And finally, of course, he's noted for the innovation. It may seem obvious, but it wasn't then. In 1933, he proposed at the Scarborough RIBI convention that the monopoly that clubs had on their areas should cease. So in those days, London controlled London, and Birmingham controlled Birmingham, and so it was. And no other clubs could be formed within the bailiwick of those particular Rotary clubs. And he said, well, that's ridiculous. We need to be more diverse, we need to have more colour, we need more clubs. Rotary, of course, being ever on the uptake, took 10 years to decide that that was a good idea. It's a bit like a tanker, you know, you make a suggestion and 10 years later it might turn directions. And of course, so we had Finsbury Rotary Club was the first club outside the London club, formed in 1943. So again, when you think London 1912 and Finsbury 1943, quite a long time without any other Rotary clubs. And sadly, there are still Rotary clubs who feel the same and don't want anybody anywhere near them anyway, but that's their problem rather than us. And again, I think that was an innovation which really kick-started the vibrancy of Rotary in London, and we need to celebrate that. And we're at the same sort of point, I believe, in our history now, with satellite clubs, corporate membership, Friends of Rotary, new clubs, different ways of expressing Rotary, working together, encouraging different people. I think it's a really exciting time and a challenge. We're going to the districts, and it's just amazing how much work with young people. As I say, Rotary Kids, Interact is really growing. We went to Liverpool in that district, 8 new satellite clubs this year. It's really good news that we're having that diversity and that fun, and I think that's something to celebrate. And how we manage that change, well, we have to learn perhaps a little bit from Stanley about that. So there we are. An exciting time in Rotary, I think a challenging time. He was a man of his time. He was very influential in so many ways. Hopefully we as Rotarians in this decade can make inroads and changes that are far-reaching, so that in 100 years' time people will say, gosh, what sensible decisions, what imaginative decisions were made. So in conclusion, perhaps, sounds a bit serious, I don't mean to be serious, because I'm sure he was quite a bon viveur. Must be from London, you know, they're all bon viveurs, so I'm told, you know. Stand up and not bomb me there. Yes, well, proves my point. We need clarity as to who we are and what we stand for and where we want to go. So, President Clive, thank you very much for your hospitality. As I've said, if people want to ask questions, I'll be delighted to do so. And finally, may I give you my banner as a thank you for having me, and the members also. Thank you.